Welcome to A Call to Healing. I'm your host, Melanie McDaniel. Today's guest is Mikaal Bates, a coach and a leader in men's work and relationships between the masculine and the feminine. This conversation shows a map, the initiation of boys into men to improve our society through healing and empowering the masculine. So get ready to be inspired. Mikaal Bates, welcome to A Call to Healing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to dive into what you offer and your wisdom. So let's kind of start with, who are you and how'd you get to where you are right now?
That's a great question.
Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, well, I think I got here from taking a lot of wrong turns, a lot of right turns, a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties. But ultimately, about 10 years ago, finding my path, finding my mission, finding my purpose, finding my dharma, and pursuing it and being pursued by it. That being, this work we call men's work, and men's work has become sort of a bit of a blanket term, but I would say it's as I see it, the process of fully moving from boyhood to manhood, from boy psychology into mature masculine identity, that because we've lost the initiation rites of that process in our culture, we haven't had them in any meaningful way in, I would say, at least 100 years or so, maybe longer. And just because of the way the modern world has taken us, that men are really suffering as a result of this. I certainly was. And when men suffer, women suffer. And when men suffer, children suffer. And when men suffer, the world suffers. And the world and women and children and men are suffering in a great way, I would say right now, largely due to something that I refer to as, it's not my reference, but it's the crisis in masculinity, and a big thing that is, I think, underway in the Western world in a big way, that has left a lot of men unable to even answer simple questions like, what is a man? What does it mean to be a man? How do I know that I'm a man? How do I be a good man? Especially with so few models anymore, and a real pathway into that. And so, yeah, my work centers around helping men discover that for themselves. I don't pretend to have I've got it all figured out here and I know the way, but there are ways, there are ancient ways that have been in existence for eons, cross-culturally, that are universally held and recognized pathways to this process. And so, yeah, I'm a big proponent of that path, and it's a path made by walking, and it's a path I've been walking for a long time and will continue walking till the day I leave this planet.
How did you find your way to what you know now?
Deep existential crisis. I would say the early onset of my midlife crisis, but I think it definitely started a bit earlier. Up until the age of 18, I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was going to be a professional basketball player and a musician, and that was very clear. That had been clear for a long time. And early, by like age 19, both of those were no longer a reality. And I was sort of in this stunned and stupefied state of, what am I now? Who am I? What am I doing? I went to university, and typical age, and struggled. I didn't struggle at school, but I struggled to find something that was my thing. I pursued a number of different majors. I graduated finally with a degree in English and creative writing, and moved to New York City to try to figure it out, and spent the next decade falling in love with the city, falling in love with a few different incredible women, and traveling the world and sort of living that young man's life in my 20s. And as I pushed closer and closer to 30, I still didn't feel any closer to who I was or what I was meant to do. I think there's a very clear idea that for men, or for the masculine for that matter, that the masculine and feminine are energies and dynamics that exist within all human beings. And I'm not one to say what is correct for you. I'm more interested, when I work with my clients, I'm interested in, what is, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Like, is the way that you're leading your life actually producing the type of life that you want to be living, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I struggled, man. I did. There's not really a degree or a path or a program for what I do. It's not like, I mean, I think now there's more shamanistic schools or things like that where you can kind of learn about these things. But I started finding, the works of Joseph Campbell. I started finding the works of Carl Jung. I started diving in, but it really was when I was 35, once my existential crisis had really kind of accelerated. I was told by my beautiful hippie parents to just, be yourself and follow your dreams. And I felt like I had been doing that, but the thing hadn't showed up, and I just kept getting older and older. And suddenly women were looking at me as, what I could provide instead of just a handsome young guy. And so it was, the real onset of this crisis in my system. And, I think men today aren't really being taught much along those lines as far as, well, what is it that you're actually here on planet Earth to do? And so getting clear on that, getting clear on your purpose, on your mission, is something that I think for men particularly, again, women have that as well. The masculine itself, I think, tends to orient towards mission and purpose as the top priority, whereas the feminine will often prioritize more love and relationship, slightly, as a difference between the two, but we all have both. But that for me, I spent my young life sort of prioritizing love and relationship and not really prioritizing a mission, not really having a mission. And it was, at 35, sort of being handed a copy of Iron John, which is one of the fundamental tomes, I would say, in the men's work world by the poet Robert Bly, that changed my life. Reading that book was a psychedelic experience, a sober psychedelic experience, and it transformed everything. And it helped me start to make sense of my own suffering, my own challenges, the absence of the traditional initiations and rites of passage that help a man transform himself psychologically. Because, as we all grow up, like boys grow up into male bodies, into adult male bodies, one way or another. But what this work really centers on is that our psychology is not transferring in the way that it once did, because we're not going through ordeals and challenges as young men that we once would have, that would set us up to meet the challenges of life well, that would set us up to be able to find comfort within discomfort and to center ourselves on something greater than ourselves, to have our eyes on the women and children and the good of the community rather than just the good of myself. And there are so many different inputs right now from different men, whether it's, Andrew Tate or some of the more inflammatory figures in what's sort of called the manosphere, which I do think there is some good in what those men are saying. At least they're offering men something. But that, men are really struggling. Men have been struggling for a long time. And I think, again, as men struggle, women struggle. And as women struggle, men struggle as well. It turns out we're part of the same species. So there's a lot I could say about that, but I'll pause.
Yeah. So you're a men's coach, a facilitator of retreats. You work with
Yes.
men, women, and couples.
Absolutely.
What age do you mostly work with? Who's finding you?
Yeah, I'd say it's when I work with men, it's mostly, I have a client in his late 60s. I have clients in their 20s. So I would say it generally ranges from there, mid to late 20s up until late 50s, early 60s, I would say. But the oldest guy in the first cohort of the King's Code that we did here in Austin, Texas, the men's initiatory program that I've helped run for the last 2 years, he was 77.
Wow.
And so, our youngest man was 25 and our oldest was 77.
That's amazing.
So it's never too late. And there's never, the work, in one way, the work is never done. There's always work on yourself you can be doing. And at the same time, can you love and accept yourself as you are right now? I think that's a bit of the crux of the work that I do for people, helping them, be okay with how you are, and also working towards something greater than yourself, something, a better version of you that's always available.
And I'm not going to pretend to know what the man's arc is, but for women, it's the child, the maiden, the mother, the crone. That's kind of the arc. Is there an arc for men?
There is. The work that I tend to focus on is it's a book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it works on those. It's a distillation of a larger frame of Jungian archetypes that these two men who were Jungian psychologists distilled down to these four essential archetypes that I think that all men have, but that the work that I do centers on helping them balance and bring online their warrior, their lover, their magician or shaman, essentially, which the balancing of those three brings on the energy of the king, the mature and elevated masculine in that sense of things that every man has inside of him that just, for whatever reason, hasn't been brought online. There is a beautiful frame that I love from a woman named Alison Armstrong, whose work is becoming more popular, finally. I have no idea why she isn't a household name. It's so incredible. Where she talks about men going through a transition from page to knight, like page or squire to knight to prince, and that there are three stages of the prince, and then you go through a tunnel on your way to becoming a king in your own life. And so there is a step-by-step process that I think tracks in a big way. And yeah, I'd say that, so many men get stuck in a stage and aren't able to fully transition, for whatever reason or not, into their maturity. And I think you could ask most men whether or not they'll be honest with you is one thing, because I think as men we're taught that we need to have it all together. We're taught that we need to put forward a good front. And for a lot of us, in moments where we've leaned into honesty, radical honesty, whether with a partner or with friends, we've had it used against us. And so a lot of men are reticent to admit that they need help, to admit that they're struggling, to admit that there are challenges that they themselves alone are not capable of undertaking. So there's something there that, I love looking at and helping men look at, not because we're broken or not good enough, or you're not a man because you haven't initiated or you don't feel like a king, but every man knows where he's coming up short. And we all come up short from time to time. There are no perfect men. What I think makes us men is what happens when we make a mistake. And do we have the capacity to show up in that moment with integrity and with clarity and with support from other men? So a big thing we talk about in the King's Code is that for men, the general framework is if you have knowledge of your purpose, if you have a deep sense of why you're here and what it is that you're doing and you're pursuing that, if you're connected to brotherhood, if you have other men in your life that you can rely on, so you're not just taking your problems to your women and your therapist, but that you have good men that you can rely on and talk to and open up to, and then finally that you're connected to something greater than yourself. That you can call it God, you can call it spirit, but it can be a legacy project. It can be something that is in service to others. And so from what I've seen, when men have those three things online, it's very hard to not excel and to not feel really good and fulfilled and enough in your life.
Yeah. So for young men in our culture today, what is the ideal path? I mean, we have our parents that we have, so parents, like, what can they do for their boys? But if a boy doesn't have, like a teenager or something, a guy in his 20s or late teens, and they hear this or they come across something, what do they do? How do they start?
Great question. It's a great question. And no, again, there are maps. There are very like cross-culturally widely held maps if you look for them. That traditional cultures in Africa were very similar to traditional cultures in the Americas and traditional cultures in Europe before the Romans came through and kind of wiped everything out 2,000 years ago. There's a universally held idea that boys, and this is the thing, if you have boys, if you've been around boys are super sweet. They're just the sweetest creatures in the world. They're really soft, sweet, beautiful boys. And there comes an age, generally around anywhere between 11 to 13 in traditional cultures. And again, I'm talking about Proto-European cultures as well. All cultures, Asian cultures, Australian culture. It's a universally held thing that at about that age was the time that would be appropriate for the boy to leave mother's house, to no longer simply be mother located, because we all come out of her, we all come out of mother. And so it's correct that we're focused on mom. The young kids are focused on mom because mom is the source of not just milk, but love and attention, and you came out of her body. And it's like, when you're a newborn, you don't even know that there's a difference. It takes a while for you to know that there's a difference between you and mom, which is so cool. I love that. But that for a lot of young men in our culture, we end up stuck in a mother-located arena. We end up stuck as what the Jungians call the puer aeternus, the eternal boy, the flying boy. That we stay stuck psychologically in an immature state, because traditionally speaking, the men of the tribe, our father and his brothers and uncles, and the men of our tribe would have come, and there would have been a process that we would have gone through. The men would have come and taken us generally into our masculine initiation. They would have taken us into the wild, into the cold and the dark, and away from the comfort of the hearth and the comfort of the warmth of mother, so that we could learn to be self-reliant, that we could learn to be in service to something greater than ourselves, so that we can learn to go through something. I mean, our sisters, you all go through something every 28 days. You're presenced and humbled every 28 days, biologically, internally, from the inside out. You experience that. The masculine rite of passage is meant to meet that on the other side of the equation, culturally, from the outside in, right? Women, you have sex on the inside of your body. Men, we have sex on the outside of our body. It's the opposite frame. Men have a 24-hour testosterone cycle. You have a 28-day menstrual cycle. We're two sides of the same coin, but we're very different, very, very different. And this is something I focus on in the men's and women's work that I do, and the couples work that I do. That it's very popular nowadays to, men and women, we're the same. It's like, yes, and we not more different. And knowing that, turns out, changes everything. And so for boys, there's a necessity to move into father's house, to move from mother's house, and I mean this archetypally, to move from mother's house to father's house. And, the hero's journey is the arc that Joseph Campbell popularized, that men like George Lucas used when they wrote the script for Star Wars. So Star Wars is an amazing frame. I think it's why it's so popular, for the natural sort of rite of passage that happens in our human lives. And, women have a slightly different one. And it's not that a woman can't go on a masculine rite of passage, but there's, the work of Maureen Murdoch and a number of other women, the heroine's journey, where it's a sort of slightly different thing. But because we've lived in a male-dominated society for a long time, the focus has been on the masculine path. But ironically, it also hasn't been being fulfilled over the last 100 years for a number of different reasons. The men no longer being in the home, where the men are at the office, the men were sent to the mines, the men went to the mill, the men were no longer doing work in the home, in the village, around where the boys and the girls, but the kids could see what the men were up to. We've lost our men. Our men went to war. Our men have gone to a lot of different places that just weren't around 100 years ago. And that has really affected the way our young men specifically are being raised. And there's an idea that every boy will join a gang. There's something natural in men to join something, to seek out mentorship, which is, I think, why people are so upset with Andrew Tate and his popularity, where there's some questionable things that he's teaching, but there's also some beautiful things that he's inviting young men into, which is to take responsibility. Jordan Peterson is another example of people that are out there that are trying to give something, because boys will initiate, boys will join a gang, and it's our job to make sure that that's the basketball team, not the Bloods or the Crips. It's the math club, or it's something nutritious, something that's beneficial. So again, we've lost this in our culture, and the losing of it hasn't made it go away evolutionarily speaking. Like, men are designed to respond at a certain time in a certain way, and when that doesn't come, there's an old African proverb that I'll have to paraphrase, but it's like, if the boys aren't receiving what they need from the village, they'll burn down the village just to feel the warmth that they're not receiving. And so, for the last 70 years, I think our culture has been focusing on what men are doing wrong and what we're not doing, as opposed to what we're also doing well. And so boys, young boys are bombarded right now. Men are bombarded right now with a lot of what we're doing wrong. Patriarchy, toxic masculinity, all these things. But we've lost focus on what men are also doing well. And it turns out men are just boys that have grown up, and we're actually incredibly sensitive, despite the stereotype. We're incredibly responsive. We just respond differently than women do. And a lot of women, because you're women, respond to us as though we're women when we're men and we're different. And we do that to you too. That's a whole other topic. But again, I get very excited with this stuff, and I can talk about it for hours. So I will take a breath and pause.
No, I love where all this is going because I mean, I am a woman. I have my perspective. I've
Yeah.
looked into the men's stuff, but I cannot be, and I can't know a man from a man's perspective. So I think
Yeah.
all of this is very helpful. And
Well,
I
no more than
don't,
I can know your perspective as a woman, right? And I think that's why I'm so excited about the men's and women's work, is that we need each other. We need to learn how to listen to each other again, and recognize that we're different.
well, let's jump to that beautiful, what we would call the sacred union. Like we'll come back to some of this how
Yes.
and the path, but let's jump to like, what does that look like if men and women were in their, I don't, I don't know, like the divine or the healed masculine, healed
Yeah.
feminine in our kingdom, in our queendom.
Yes.
What would that look like? What would a relationship look like?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right now. Because the thing that I always come to is that for all of the money we spend on education, all the PhDs and master's degrees and bachelors and all the books and everything, it's like when I talk to people, and when you talk, you hear from people on their deathbed, what's the most important thing? Nobody says, well, I wish I had more time to stay at my job and make more money or acquire more things. It's the relationships that are the most important. It's the people. I wish I had more time with my son or my mother or my dad or my friends or what have you. And the weird irony that no one seems to be talking about is that the one thing that none of us receive any education or any training around is relationship, is men and women, is intimacy, is the sensual arts, the sexual arts, all of these things that I believe are the most important thing to creating a fulfilling life. We don't even talk about it. Like there's no education for our young people. I mean, I remember 7th grade getting shown how to put a condom on a banana and the sort of biological slides on the chalkboard, and that was it, and my parents did a great job with me. They really did. But we're really struggling because we've forgotten that men and women are different and that we're very different. And that I think the most important thing a man can do if he wants to date and if he wants to be a father and if he wants to get married is to devote himself to learning about women and about himself and about men as well, but like to really learn about how women are and what makes them different. Again, I think Alison Armstrong does incredible work around this. And then one of my other mentors, David Data, on the men's side, does a wonderful job as well. But we are struggling. Our divorce rates are through the roof. People aren't having sex anymore. People aren't getting married anymore. We've really lost faith because where are the models? Where is the model for what is actually possible? And most of us start out not at a blank slate, but at a deficit because we grew up with our parents' dynamic and our parents' relationship, which for the majority of us wasn't healthy in some way, shape, or form, but we've had that imprinted on us. And again, because we don't have the tribe and the extended community that we all once had, if we're lucky, we have one model for woman and one model for man from our parents. And if we only have one model, we're going to take in all of the shadow in addition to the brilliance of our parents without additional models for what a man can be like. So I think that's really where the struggle comes from, where the beginning of it is, where there's this expectation that, as a man, I'm supposed to show up, I'm supposed to know how to please you, how to pleasure you, how to be dynamic in bed, how to, do all the things that you're going to like. And I'm somehow supposed to know that without any training, And with all of the anti-training that modern pornography brings, which, wasn't a thing when you and I grew up. I'm assuming we're about the same age. Maybe you're, but yeah, like now it's just ubiquitous porn. You can just go online and it's right there. And so our young people are being educated. They're being educated by the pornography industry, and it is decimating our young men. Erectile dysfunction and in 20-year-olds is so prevalent because they're so hyper-stimulated, and there's just so much to get into. But again, it's tough out there.
Yeah, for the sacred union, I mean, sex obviously is a huge part of it. This is opinion. I don't know what the right answer is, but a monogamous relationship, what's going on with this poly stuff, what are we supposed to be doing, what's healthy? Like when people on their deathbed say, I wish I had better relationships, what do they mean by that? I'm just curious your thoughts, just because this is such a big thing in our culture.
It's a huge topic. I can say from my own personal experience, I've been in incredible monogamous relationships, and I've been in absolute nightmares that were monogamous. I've been in an incredible polyamorous dynamic before, and I've also been in an absolute nightmare of a polyamorous dynamic. I think people are looking for alternatives. And again, I'm not here to say what's right for you, but I am here to say that there is something right for you that only you are going to know, but that most of us aren't even able to get there because we haven't been taught how to actually communicate. So for me, where I often start when I'm working with couples and when I'm working with men and women is introducing the active listening frame, introducing frames from nonviolent communication, or just ways to actually have what I would call a more conscious conversation, how to fight well, how to argue well, because every relationship, once the honeymoon phase ends, there's going to be your first fight. You're going to have an argument. And knowing how to argue, knowing how to fight, knowing how to recognize that if this is your person and your partner, you don't want to win an argument with your partner. You want to understand where they're coming from. You want to be able to understand your own work. And so I think this is where the last 70 years of personal development has been important. We've learned about everything from astrology to human design to the gene keys to our attachment styles to love languages. We have all of these beautiful frames now, and we're only just starting to apply these things, for those of us who have really devoted time, energy, and attention to this. But most people haven't. And so most people are just trying to stay together while they've got 2 kids and they're both working jobs, and mom and dad are getting older, and there's just so many inputs that people are really, I think, having a hard time with things. So yeah, sacred union is possible, but it begins with the work that you're doing. And so, I often have women say to me, where's my king? I'm ready for a conscious man. And it's like, well, my response is always, okay, well, I believe you, but are you treating men consciously? If you're looking for a king, are you a queen? Are you the reciprocal? Because we always attract our reciprocal, always. That's the math of polarity. That's the algebra of the interpersonal dynamic. And because this taps back into the men's work that I do, because most men haven't learned how to become sovereign men, sourcing their approval from their work, from other men, from a connection to something greater than themselves. So much of us are seeking that approval and validation from her, that we come into a relationship, again, already at a deficit, already not knowing who we are. And then the relationship becomes about working out our respective challenges together, because in traditional culture, I would have gone through my rite of passage as a teenager. You would have gone through yours as a teenager. And only then would you be dating and marrying on the other side of that very clear transformation in the support of an intact tribal society with elders and mentors and extended family to support you in your relationship. And so what we're experiencing right now is just real myopia in relationships, because we don't have support. We don't have counsel. We don't have groups of friends and elders where if you and I are together and we get into a fight, and we get into that same fight because that's the dharma that we've come into our relationship to heal together, but it's just us. And We've all been in that relationship where you just loop on the same fight, and it's the same, and it feels like the fight is having you instead of you having the fight. And what the fuck is going on? And it takes you 2 years of therapy afterwards, and to figure out, oh my God, I was anxiously attached, and and that's why I was doing this, because I'm a nice guy, and oh my gosh, and I have codependence. Wow, it's like, because we're not prioritizing working on that earlier, we bring that into our relationship, and then we put all of that on our partner, and that's not fair for us to be doing that. So, yeah, what do we do about that? That's the work that I'm really in. And when I start working with couples, the first thing I start to take stock of is, okay, what are the resentments that you all are holding towards each other? What's that thing that you got into a fight about a year and a half ago, but you didn't have the skills to be able to, or the patience or the time to be able to just hang on, we've got to settle this, because I don't want dead bodies, floating behind us and taking up space in the relationship. Obviously, I mean that metaphorically.
Right.
But hopefully metaphorically. Yeah. And so again, like the work that I do is really helping people get clear on what it is they want in relationship, because often we just inherit what we think we should have from what our parents had or what society tells us we should have. What do we actually want in relationship? What are we bringing to it that is keeping us in challenge? What's our pattern? And then what are we polarizing to in the other? Because we've all probably had this experience too. You get into a series of arguments, you have the same fight over and over, and you break up. And then you're single for a while and you date a little bit, and then you find your next person and you get into a relationship, and suddenly 10 months into the new relationship, you're having the same fight with the new person, because again, the piece that's there trying to heal in the relationship didn't heal. And so these things don't just go away, but with skillful means, with clarity, with some education around these things. And I'd say with the reprioritization of what's actually important in our lives, again, given the deathbed testimony from anyone and everyone, I've never heard a story of anyone on their deathbed being like, yeah, fuck relationships, I just want more money, I want more stuff.
Right.
Well, wait, you can't bring it with you. So it's like, yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of personal and self-work to do before we should even consider relationships to an extent. Or do you think young people having relationships is a good way to learn as you go?
I think, yeah, we've tried that, don't have sex before marriage doesn't really work, right? Our bodies and biology are telling us to do that. And so I'm in no way trying to tell people not to do it, but there is, at the same time, there's no way to outrun your own trauma. There's no way to outrun your own challenges. And so, yeah, in a perfect world, right, you'd have the time to just take off. And, I can share something vulnerably from my own experience. My ex-fiance and I split at the end of 2023. And she is an incredible woman, and I will feel that way to my dying day. And for a number of different reasons, we weren't able to make it. But I really thought that this was my person, and that we were talking about kids, and we were moving in that direction. And when it ended in a way that was different, but also similar enough to the endings of all of my other relationships that I was just like, fuck. I was 43 at the time, and I was just like, what the fuck? I have done all of the work. I've gone to all of the programs. I teach this stuff, and yet I wasn't able to salvage my own relationship. I wasn't able to see what was in front of me, because it's very hard to see what's in. This is why we need coaches. This is why we need support and therapists and community, really community. And as a result of that, I was able to sit and sort of take a time out. I kind of put myself on the sideline. I stepped into 9 months of intentional celibacy shortly after the breakup, and just sort of took myself out of the equation. I'm like, I'm not willing to get into another relationship with this challenge still running my life. And eventually it brought me to a 12-step program for codependence. And I learned that, oh my God, the thing underlying all of my relational struggles has been this, in the 12-step program, they use the term addiction, my addiction to codependence. I think our whole culture is a little codependent, to say the least. But I got to dive into something. I did take myself out of the equation. I did say, I'm not going to date. I'm not going to even sleep with people. I'm going to just go through this 12-step process, which took me about a year to go through. And I was stunned that none of this had ever come up in all the work that I had done. It had never come up. And so I got to the bottom of another layer of it. Now, does that mean that I'm perfect and fixed and solved now? Probably not. But there's a layer of awareness and clarity that I have that is irrefutable and indelible. It's made an indelible imprint on me in a major way. And so there's always work to be done. And then there's also accepting where you are right now.
Can you share an example of what is codependent? And then on the other side of that, is the word interdependent that we want to use, or is there another term, or we don't need to put a term to it, but what's like an example of this was a codependent thing that was happening, and now what would you do in that same situation?
Yeah. So for me, and again, if anyone is interested or feels like they or could be codependent, I recommend going to the Coda is what it's called, coda.org, going to the website. And there's a new members section, or there's a series of questions like, you may be codependent if.
Okay.
And for me, it was like always looking to my partner to sort of like tell me what to do, like looking to her first before I would make my own decision, outsourcing my authority to her, being very, very susceptible and almost addicted to her approval over my own or someone else's. So prioritizing what she wanted to do over what I wanted to do. And then not even aware that I was doing it to a large degree. Sometimes I would be, but mostly I just wasn't even aware. It was the upbringing I had learned from my family of origin. It's just sort of the pattern that I inherited. And again, this is no fault to my mom and dad. We all have that. No parents are going to be perfect. We all take a wound. We all come here with something to work through. That's gonna happen. But for me, it was very much an orientation of, despite my size, I'm 6'5", despite my very masculine nature, I would almost switch into this very passive orientation in the relationship about 9 months in. And suddenly my partner would kind of be like, what's going on here? And so I would attract a very specific type of woman that I was drawn to. And so again, there's a very deep dive you can go on in codependence. It shows up differently for different people. I think there's 5 different categories that the website goes over, and everyone's different. Interdependence, though, I think is the goal. And there is there's a needle to thread here with it, because some codependence is healthy. We're pack animals. Human beings we're herd animals and we're pack animals. We actually need each other. Like if you don't touch a baby, it dies. Like we're like that. We need people. We need touch. We need contact. We are dependent. I don't care. I'll talk to the most independent American man out there. I can do it all on my own. I am the lone wolf. I need no one. It's like, that's not true. And I celebrate your independence and your capacity, and you go, brother. But there's another side of that equation. And that's when I work with men, it's often that. It's like men either have an imbalance of more sword energy and less heart energy, or more heart energy and less sword energy. And it's about bringing that to balance. It's not making it wrong. It's about bringing that to balance for that individual person. I don't know what's best for them, but they sure as heck do. And so when I ask enough questions and we get to the bottom of that, people sort of figure it out. But back to the interdependence, it's like, yeah, there is a way to be interdependent. We are dependent on each other, and I'm a sovereign individual. And so when I'm dating or when I'm in dynamics, whether professional or romantic, I'm in a position now that I was never in before, that I didn't even know to be in, where I very much come from my own orientation first. Like we have to be self-centered. Mm-hmm. I think it was Osho that called it sacred selfishness. To actually have your own orientation, know what you want, and know where your boundaries are. And I had no boundaries in my early relationships. I just thought, well, whatever she wants, right? It's like, whatever she wants to make her happy. I need her to be happy, because if she's happy, then I'm happy. And that is, I think, what a lot of people do in relationship, and doesn't quite work out that way in the end. People don't end up being happy when you just try to make them happy at your own expense. That was my experience.
Yeah, so the interdependence, we want to be, a lot of people want to be in relationship, maybe marriage, maybe not, but at least a relationship. So there is, an interdependence, especially a masculine and feminine. Like the feminine plays
Yes.
a role and the masculine plays a role. Like we want to be interdependent. So
Yeah.
now when you say you have a sovereign side, what's the process you go through when you're being interdependent versus being codependent? Like, is it a dinner decision and you're like, no, I really want steak?
It's different for everyone. Yeah, it's different for everyone. It's a wonderful question. I think it's what we're trying to figure out right now as a culture. I think right now we're struggling under the, some guise of perfectionism where it's like, he's got to be, 6 feet. What is it like they say, like triple sixes, like 6 feet, six pack, six figures. It's like that is a very small subset of the population. And there's this idea that the man is going to show up perfect. Your king is going to show up perfect. Your queen is going to show up perfect. I've never seen that happen once. To me, the king and queen show up inside of the relationship. And so I think a lot of people have this idea that we're waiting for the perfect person to show up. And as soon as anything bad or negative shows up, we're on to the next. Because with dating apps and all these things, it seems like there's an infinite amount of potential out there. And in a way there is, but then there's the choice paralysis that comes from that. There's the endless possibility. 100 years ago, you were limited to, the people that were in your immediate vicinity, in your town. And I think in a way there was something easier about that because your options were more limited. And now it seems like they're unlimited and suddenly you're 40. And I'm reminded of something I heard Jordan Peterson say once, to get married and have children is a sacrifice. You're sacrificing your personal freedom and you're sacrificing the freewheeling life that you once had. That is a sacrifice, but it is also a sacrifice to be single and childless. Mm-hmm. It is also a sacrifice. Life is a sacrifice. It's something I think my Jewish brothers and sisters, that tradition understands very well. That life is one way or another, we are going to die. You are a living sacrifice. It is a sacrifice to be alive. So choosing one or the other, choosing something, choosing someone, and going all in and realizing they're gonna fuck up. They're gonna fuck you up. They're gonna make mistakes. Do you have the skills to be able to work through that? And I'll close this thread by just saying that I've been dating someone recently, and she's the most incredible woman I've ever met. And we had our first big fight, and 10 minutes into the fight, we were through it. And we both came out on the other side. And this is someone who has done her work and has, just blew me away with her capacity. Because she was upset in a way that I would have been so triggered by before, because I can't have mom upset. I can't have the feminine upset, and she definitely can't be upset at me. And if she's upset at me, then I am bad, and I am a bad man. I am a toxic patriarchal tyrant. But I was able to stand in that because of this recent codependent work. I was able to just stand and hold my line and hear her and say, I hear what you're saying. Tell me more. What else is there? I was able to use these frames that I teach and sit with it. And we actually went through the argument and came out on the other side in a way that I think neither of us had ever actually experienced, especially not that quickly. And there was just immediate tears. I just started crying. I was just like, oh my God, what just happened? It's like we came out the other side and immediately we felt the intimacy deepen. Immediately we felt the depth of our connection deepen. And I will say, the best makeup sex in the history of the world happened on the other side of that. Because again, it's like, if you can fight well in a relationship, if you can really be in disagreement skillfully, your relationship can go on indefinitely, really indefinitely. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I'm a proponent of teaching people is not if or when the fight's going to happen. It's going to happen. It should happen. Should happen. Absolutely. Do you have the capacity and the skill to be able to meet someone in their challenge, in their trauma, in their father wound, in their dad wound, in the way that they are going to project onto you? In the part of it that is 50% your fault, but also in the 50% that is theirs to hold. And can you meet each other in that dynamic and learn how to dance in that? Because if you can do that, and I believe you can, and I teach people how to do that, and I've learned how to do it, and I've learned how to do it by not doing it and struggling and suffering and watching my own parents' challenging dynamic that I inherited and grew up with, that became my dharma, that became my work. So yeah, yeah, there is a way through. There is hope.
Is there, well, maybe we, when we approach relationships, instead of looking for that perfect partner and that king and the perfection, maybe we need to look and want both of it. Like, because, I mean,
Yes.
for the makeup sex alone, right? But seriously,
Yeah.
like, approach a relationship like this is the person I want to grow with, and we grow
Yes.
through these fights or
Yeah.
through the communication and the biggest triggers. Our partners are often our biggest triggers, and it's an opportunity for growth. So instead of approaching it as, oh, it needs to be perfect, we approach it as I'm here for all of it.
Yes.
And then finding a
Absolutely.
partner that you trust can hold that, because it's a lot of vulnerability, I think, to fight or to share your
It is.
truth, like
It is.
especially to admit when you're wrong or if you did something wrong like that. The person that is going to hold that for you, that's a special person.
It is. And that specialness is built. It's built with the brick and mortar of your day-to-day life together. And it's built with an understanding of polarity. You know, the moment you move in together into the same space, that's a polarity killer. If you don't know how to keep the dynamic in a polarized way, because you become roommates. And roommates is not, the sexy lover across town where you have your late night tryst and you come to her place and she comes to his place, or he comes to his place and he comes to his, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're attracted to or what body you're in. Polarity doesn't care. It's math. It's literally math, which is what's so cool about it. You can learn to understand it like you learn a subject at school. It's a subject that should be at school. Part of my commitment is to get this into every middle school and high school curriculum across the world. Why the fuck not? And so again, there is a way to understand each other, and there's a way to be able to meet each other in a deeper way. And if you're looking for a hack, there are hacks. It's like if you're a woman and you want to be with a good man, honor him, acknowledge him, learn to use the magic word that all men respond to, which is help. I need help. Can you help me with something? This is an Alison Armstrong poll, and she's so freaking brilliant. It's insane. But like men today, we do not feel acknowledged. We do not feel seen. We feel very much only dog piled on for the negative things. And so if you can actually, and this doesn't mean that men get a free pass, ladies, not at all. But if you can learn to really honor and acknowledge your man and study him, there, again, Alison Armstrong's work is so good for this. All of my clients have to read it. I mean, we read it because it's just incredible. And then for men, if you can help a woman feel safe, if you can understand that every day a woman has at least once that she fears for her physical safety. As men, it took me till I was like in my 30s to understand that I'm 6'5". I lived in West Harlem. I would come home from my bartending shift in my late 20s, $500 cash in my pocket, and I'm good. I'm not worried. Women are. Can you help them co-create their own sense of safety? Can you help her feel cherished? Can you praise her? And can you love her? Whatever that means. Ask her what that means to her. If you can do that, she is going to bloom like a flower. Sorry. Whether she has more masculine or more feminine or what she's attracted, it doesn't matter. Like if you're in a same sex relationship, one of you is probably more top and more bottom. One of you is more dom, more sub, right? This is where the masculine and feminine dynamic can be really useful as a codex, as a keystone for translating what's actually happening in the dynamic. And you can get good at this, and you can read it like you learn how to read the waves on the ocean if you're a surfer. It's incredible. I mean, it blew me away. I was 35 when I found this work, when I found David Deda's work. I didn't find Alison Armstrong's work till I was in my 40s. And I was just like, where the fuck has this work been? Why didn't anyone show me this when I was 15, for God's sakes?
Time to write some children's books.
Well, that's kind of in the works.
Awesome.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Going back to where we were talking before and jump to the sacred union stuff for men, our boys moving into manhood, what in our modern day, what does an initiation look like? What does elderhood look like, or eldership, or whatever we want to call that? Like,
it's a great question. It's a great question. There's an idea that, if we don't initiate our boys, the life starts trying to initiate you. Life starts initiating you. You will receive initiations. A car accident can be an initiation. Fraternities at university used to kind of be that. The hazing that kind of got out of hand was initially meant to put you through an ordeal. That there's an ordeal that men specifically need to go through. And that can, in modern days, that can be a vision quest. That can be 4 days alone out in wilderness where it's just you and nothing else, no cell phone, nothing else. There's organizations that do this. The King's Code that I've been a part of here in Austin, we run a 5-month program for men that takes you through a process of passage that allows you to identify and pick up the pieces of your own boy psychology. And there's a list. There's a good sort of Google search or putting ChatGPT or Claude on the contents of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. You can kind of pull out what those qualifiers are. From there, you can look and work to identify, okay, where are the places that you haven't yet initiated? Because some of them will. You'll great. I got this. Oh, I am dependent on external power systems to tell me what to do. Okay, that's something I need to look at. And so there are ways to go about identifying this because, again, every man is different. So when we set out to do this program with my co-pilot, what would I even call Rob Montgomery, amazing man that I've been helping run this program with. It's like, how do we help every man figure out for him what are the pieces that are missing, and then step into an initiatory process around that to where he can pick up his own power. He can learn how to rely on himself and others, but himself, so that the world is now populated with men that are self-aware, that are physically vital, emotionally intelligent, relationally wealthy, sexually studious, financially stable, spiritually grounded. And these things that I'm listing are what I call, it's the sevenfold masculine path that I work with men on in my one-on-one work, where I help men sort of balance their equation. Because I work with guys all the time that have got 8 figures in the bank, and their relationships are in the toilet because they're so just singularly focused on work, and they don't have the skills to translate it into relational dynamics. I know guys that are in great relationship but got no money in the bank, and the relationship's depolarized because they're not providing. And doesn't mean that every man has to provide in a relationship, but that there's just things are topsy-turvy. So again, the first stage is sort of the like you go to a doctor's, run your blood work. Okay, what's off here? What's missing? What's specifically unique to you that you're missing? And then we run a diagnostic. We see what that is, and then the idea is that you can create a process or help create a process. There's lots of organizations out there besides the King's Code, by the way, that do this type of work, and we're not quite there yet with our young men's program, though that is on the docket that we want to create soon. But there are young men's programs out there that do rites of passage work for young men. If you are parents out there, if you're a single mom out there in particular, I think you know this. He needs masculine influence. He needs to do that, and there's something in you that I think understands that too. And that I love that the part of mother is designed to never stop mothering. That's part of the biological evolutionary fail-safe for humanity. I go home for Thanksgiving and my mom still insists on me wearing a sweater when we go out to dinner. And I'm like, Mom, I'm good. I do cold plunge and all this stuff. I'm good. She's like, no, we can't leave and you're going to get sick. And it's like, okay. I used to fight her. Now I'm just like, okay, Mom. Yeah, I'll put on a sweater. I love you. Because it's mom mothering. But when the masculine doesn't come in to make that cut, to help the boys transition, it harms the boys, and it also harms the mothers. It harms the women that aren't able to have their partner, the men, come and be like, hey honey, I know he'll be your little boy forever, and it's time for him to step into his manhood, and we need you to support and be a part of him claiming that for himself, so that he doesn't get stuck in mother's house like so many of our young men are today.
Yeah. Oh man, this conversation can go on and on and on because there's so much here. I mean, I think it is the most important thing, our relationships that we go through as a human. I mean,
It is.
like you said,
I'll die on that hill. I will die on that hill. I
yeah,
think that's unequivocally true.
yeah. So, where can people learn more about you, your website or whatever? You've mentioned the men's container. But
Yeah. My website is, my mother spelled my name very uniquely. I love her for that. It just means it's usually mispronounced initially the first time by people. But my name is Mikaal. It's Mikaal. My last name is Bates, B as in boy, Ates. So you can go to mikaalbates.com and everything is there. But then the kingscode.org is the men's organization that I help run here in Austin. And you don't have to be local to Austin to be a part of it. But it is, something that I'm super proud of, that we've been building for a while, and is part of a larger ecosystem of the rise of men's work that's really happening right now. And it makes me happy to know that that is happening. And I literally don't think there is anything that's more important in the world than that, than helping men become better men, because better men help women become better women, children, world, walruses, manatees,
yeah,
It's like
true.
a man disconnected from himself can't pollute a river. He can't rape a woman. He can't do the things that men do because we are so disconnected and disassociated from ourselves and a source or something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
And so again, this is my hill to die on, and I'm so grateful. It took me a long time to find it, and it took those 35 years of culminating in existential crisis to get me here, but very grateful to be here, and very grateful for you, Melanie, and what you're doing and your time and having me on the show today. And just really grateful.
Yes, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. And people are in Austin, you do a lot of speaking events, and they can just follow you, I guess, on Instagram. And I imagine you post things there where they can see you live or whatever.
I do. I've been one of those people that I'm not the biggest fan of social media, just because I feel what it does to me when I'm on it, and I know what the algorithms are programmed to do and the phones are programmed to do, and it is where everyone is. And so in coming months, I am in the process of hiring some people and working to get more of this work out and available. So it will be there on socials. I am on socials. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and everything. So I'm there.
Okay. Amazing. I know there's other work you do as well, so they could just dig in and find all that other stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you. Talk to you soon.